The history books in the library are not as detailed as the history recorded in religious scriptures, and most of them are biographies of heroes. Luo Wei took down a heroic epic called Aldrich's Song and opened 2 pages. The whole book was full of mythology. This book begins with the creation of the world by the ancient gods and tells the story of the adventures of Aldrich, the son of the god of wisdom, in the Western Plains continent. The beginning of the book describes how God created the world and the birth of human beings. The creator God took out his heart and transformed it into garland, and then sprinkled his blood to create human beings. Afraid of the coldness of mankind, he dug out his left eye and turned it into the sun, giving mankind the warm sunshine. Afraid that mankind would get lost in the dark night, he dug out his right eye and turned it into the moon, giving mankind the bright moonlight. After the death of the creator God, his soul gave birth to many new gods. These gods were born in the heart of the mother goddess and continued to bless the humans on Garan. The book also records a war 2,000 years ago, which is said to be a battle of faith among the gods. This war caused the paradise land of old mankind to be burned down by fire and turned into a desert without any grass overnight. That desert is now the wasteland. After that war, the gods no longer came to the world, but sat in the clouds. Humans migrated to a new continent to recuperate, and this new continent is the Western Plains where they now live. Legend has it that there is a 3rd continent on Garland called the Mistfield, located in the north of the Western Plains. However, the sea in the north is shrouded in thick fog all year round. No one has successfully crossed the dense fog belt so far, so it has not been confirmed whether the Mistfield really exists. It would be great if there really was a foggy plain. When she was exposed one day, she could still escape to the foggy plain to survive. It was getting late. After reading a few pages, Luo Wei went to register to borrow the book, planning to take it back and read it slowly. As soon as she left the borrowing area, 4 or 5 teenagers walked over from the opposite side, and one of them bumped straight into her. With a snap sound, the book in Luo Wei's arms was knocked to the ground. One hand picked up the book before her, and the boy turned to the cover and said in a long tone, "Let me see, what did you, a commoner, borrow? The Song of Aldrich?" After he read the title of the book, he glanced at Luo Wei and immediately fell silent. He had a headache just looking at this ancient epic poem. The young lady in front of him actually came to borrow it. If they were civilians, they would definitely not see this kind of thing. They wouldn't even be able to recognize the characters. Several other teenagers also thought of this, and for a while they winked at each other without saying a word. The young man who picked up the book thought quickly and immediately handed the book back to Luo Wei. His attitude also made a 180-degree turn. "Miss, please forgive me for being rude. There was a misunderstanding just now. I will return this book to you." Luo Wei frowned and reached out to pick up the book. "Ah, wait a minute." The young man suddenly changed his mind again, with a look of wisdom in his eyes. "Beautiful lady, I've been reading this book recently, but there are some parts that I don't understand. Can I ask you for advice?" "Very good, another one to test her. Thinks she can't read ancient books? But this thing is much simpler than classical Chinese." Luo Wei withdrew her finger and said nonchalantly, "You ask." The boy opened the first page of the book and pointed at a passage. "I can't understand this passage." Luo Wei looked at him strangely. "Can't you read the first page?" The young man's face was a little stiff. He also knew that he looked stupid for saying this, but he had just opened the book and read the first page. Only the content on the first page was familiar. "Okay, give me the book and I'll teach you." The boy returned the book to her. Luo Wei pointed at the words on the book and spoke in a soft and melodious voice. The body of the goddess died, and her soul sensed the air and became pregnant. She gave birth to the gods in a square inch and sent gods to all directions. The gods each ruled their own domain. At this time, chaos was first divided, life and death were cut off, and all beasts. The meaning of this passage is, it wasn't until she finished speaking that the boy's suspicion was completely dispelled. He thanked Luo Wei, and when he left, He looked at her face carefully, and he was a little moved by this look. This young lady has fair skin, red lips, and white teeth. She also has shiny black hair like ebony and a pair of mysterious black eyes. Although she is dressed in a very low-key manner, her elegant demeanor and rich knowledge all reflect her noble status. She is a true noble at first glance. Athena also said that since she was a commoner, she must be jealous that this young lady was prettier than her. The teenagers went back to find Athena, only to be scolded by her. Idiot. There are also smart and studious people among the common people. Do you think everyone is as ignorant as you? The young man was unconvinced, but she didn't look for the arithmetic book at all. Athena, you must have made a mistake. That's enough. Get out of here. How come the dukes gave birth to such a bunch of idiots? Athena's face was so angry that she twisted her face. She never expected that she would ask these guys to teach Luo Wei a lesson, but they failed to teach her a lesson and even turned against her when they came back. The teenagers were also impatient with this pampered little princess and walked away after being scolded by her. The two parties broke up unhappy. On the other side, Luo Wei walked around a rose garden and saw their dormitory. This is a simple Romanesque building which stands quietly on the green lawn, with its semicircular arches and rounded vaults exuding a dreamy atmosphere. The original owner's room was at the end of the corridor on the second floor of the dormitory. It was in a good location. You could see the lake when you opened the window. There was also a small balcony outside the window where you could sit and drink tea. She and Athena became enemies because of this dormitory. The original owner came first, and later Athena also took a fancy to this place, but because the original owner had already moved his things in, the school teacher still assigned the room to the original owner. After Luo Wei returned to the dormitory, she stood by the window and admired the scenery for a while. When the sun went down, she returned to the table and lit the oil lamp. There was a handheld bronze mirror upside down on the table, and she reached out and picked it up. The dim mirror reflected a green face, and Luo Wei was stunned. Isn't this what she looked like when she was 15? I thought my appearance would change after traveling through time, but I didn't expect that the original owner looked exactly like her. In the mirror, the delicate-looking little girl with black hair and black eyes looked at her motionless, as if she was looking at herself in the previous world. Luo Wei blinked. Now, she was a little doubtful whether she was soul-pierced or clothed. Fortunately, the original owner looked the same as her, with black hair, which happened to be the most noble hair color in the eyes of Westerners. If she traveled through time and had red hair, she would really be unable to pretend to be a noble. In the West, even nobles would be discriminated against if they had red hair. After looking in the mirror, Luo Wei seemed to understand why the teacher in the dormitory was biased towards her. Are feelings based on stereotypes that make her think that the black-haired self has a higher status than the blonde Athena? This is really good news. Luo Wei put down the mirror and walked to the closet to change into a linen nightgown. Looking back and seeing the woolen undershirt she had taken off, she frowned slightly. The original owner spent all his money on the outermost outfit, but didn't pay much attention to the inner clothes, which allowed Vina to catch the clue. But in fact, the woolen undershirt she wore was very soft, obviously carefully tanned, and washed very clean. Even if it wasn't white, it definitely didn't look dirty. But Vina was right about one thing. Real nobles would not wear woolen underwear. Because wool dyeing and textile technology were not yet developed at this time, the wool sweaters produced were rough and heavy, and the color was not white enough, so nobles generally wore fine linen or clothes. Luo Wei rubbed the woolen underwear in her hands, and the processing steps flashed through her mind. Technology is underdeveloped. Wouldn't it be great if she made it more developed? In the 21st century where she lived, fabrics woven from animal fibers were much more expensive than plant fibers. Chapter for the disillusioned magic pattern class. Compared with the two, clothes made from animal fibers not only have superior texture, but are also much better than plant fibers in terms of warmth and breathability. How much does a cashmere coat cost? How much does a piece of clothing cost? Moreover, the processing process of wool fabric is complicated and the maintenance is also troublesome. It is easy to pill due to friction, and it is easy to shrink after being washed once. People who are fastidious will not want to wear it again after wearing it once or twice. These shortcomings may be unfriendly to commoners, but to nobles, aren't they exactly what they want to pursue? The worth of aristocrats is reflected in complicated processes and luxurious consumption. Although it has many shortcomings and is easy to break, it is expensive to make and comfortable to wear. This is what can show your noble status. Those luxurious nobles will definitely pay for it. When all nobles are proud to wear the softest and most expensive fine cashmere sweaters, will she still look like a commoner wearing this kind of fabric? No. Instead, those people would think that she was the real aristocrat because she was the first to wear it. The night is long, and the oil lamp is dimly lit. Luowei dug out an old piece of linen cloth, used a wooden stick to bake it into charcoal, and carefully carved on the numbness. The steps of cleaning wool, the method of removing grease, the improved tools for carding wool, the process of twisting and weaving cloth. When the linen cloth was full, the moon had already risen in the sky. This piece of linen was just a draft, and when she bought the parchment, she would have to copy it again with quill and ink. When this thing is sold, the large amount of money she needs to pretend to be a noble will be replenished in time. Luowei stretched out and was extremely grateful to herself for loving vibrato in her previous life. She watched the videos of craft bloggers a lot. Her friends laughed at her at the time because she didn't learn anything useful, but learned a lot of useless things. Looking at it now, she didn't learn anything useful. Not only did she learn it, she also made a lot of money. It's just that many of the essential skills for traveling through ancient times that she saw were useless. For example, refining salt, calcining glass, making mercury mirrors, and preparing explosives. The alchemy in this world is very powerful, and these things have been studied long ago. However, the formula has always been in the hands of the great nobles, and the products produced are only for the use of the princes and nobles, and are not allowed to be sold. But it doesn't matter. With these formulas, she can make them for herself or secretly sell them on the black market to make some money. As long as she doesn't make a big deal about it, no one will pursue her for secretly crafting contraband, which just in time strengthens her aristocratic status. Isn't it normal for nobles to have these things? The oil lamp burned for most of the night, and there was not much oil left. Luowei blew out the small flame and retracted into the bed with smooth movements. The next day, magic pattern class. Today we changed to a larger classroom. Everyone was sitting in the empty classroom. There was a square sand table in front of everyone. It's not a sand table for simulating terrain. It's just a table of sand with a small smooth wooden stick placed next to the sand table. Luowei saw the classmates around her skillfully picking up small wooden sticks and scratching on the sand table, and began to think about the possibility of her getting rid of the white paper. I just don't know if creating something like this that will shake the foundation of religion and aristocratic status will lead to death for her. Forget it. Forget it. Let's just sit there for now. While thinking, a thin old man with curly brown hair and shriveled skin walked in with a parchment roll under his arm. This was the official second day of school and their first magic pattern class, so the first thing the thin old man did when he walked into the classroom was to introduce himself. Good morning, children. I am your magic pattern teacher, Claude Mike. You can call me Professor Mike. Good day, Professor Mike. The students stood up and bowed. Okay, please sit down. Professor Mike nodded, spread out the parchment on the table, and began his lecture. What is a magic pattern? A magic pattern is a container for absorbing magic power. It is also the imprint left by the gods using their divine power in the human world before they ascended to heaven. By dismantling and carving these imprints, we can capture the magical elements scattered in the world and then control and use them. There are many uses for magic patterns. The most common use is enchantment. For example, engraving the magic pattern of wind on a knight's sword can speed up the knight's swing of the sword. The second is teleportation. Magic patterns can connect space channels. Carving magic patterns in different locations allows us to complete long-distance travel. The last thing is summoning. The summoning magic pattern can not only summon monsters, but also the undead. The legendary holy magician can also summon the projection of God. Of course, the latter two kinds of magic patterns are courses that can only be taken by intermediate and advanced magic apprentices. What you have to learn now is the drawing of basic magic patterns. Luowei listened very carefully. Professor Mike's lecture was clear and interesting. In the memory of the original owner, there were magic legends circulating everywhere in this continent. Everyone believed in magic, but no one had seen it. But she can travel through time, and magic and gods might actually exist. Okay, kids, lay out your sand table. I'm going to start talking about the structure of the basic magic pattern. Mike on the podium picked up a talc pen. Magic patterns are the compression of spatial structures, so we must first learn to draw plane geometry. He turned around and drew a row of geometric shapes on the board. The geometric figures used to draw magic patterns are divided into 4 categories: rectangle, triangle, circle, and polygon. The students below also picked up small wooden sticks and wrote and drew on the sand table. Luowei also picked up the small wooden stick. I never expected that after time travel, I would have to learn mathematics from primary school. This magic pattern class is the predecessor of mathematics class, right? Professor Mike continued. After we learn to draw geometric figures, we also need to calculate the proportions of magic patterns before we can engrave them on different carriers. As he spoke, he drew a 6-pointed star on the board, marking one of its segments as 1 foot, and a square, marking its side length as 6 inches. Now, can anyone tell me, if I were to carve this 6-pointed star onto a square stone slab, what would be the longest line segment in inches? The student below immediately picked up a pen to calculate. After calculating for a while, he raised his head and looked at the wooden board with confused eyes, as if he was reading some heavenly book. Professor Mike waited and asked again, "Can anyone figure it out?" There was dead silence in the classroom. Many people lowered their heads and shrank their necks like quails. Suddenly, Vina raised her hand. "Oh, lovely child, do you want to answer my question?" Professor Mike asked in surprise. Waynaw glanced at Luowei. "I'm sorry, Professor Mike, I don't know either, but I want to recommend someone to you." Professor Mike's smile faded a little. "So, who do you want to recommend?" "My friend Luowei. She is from a noble family and is proficient in arithmetic. I think she will be able to answer your question." After speaking, Waynaw looked at Luowei and said with a proud smile, "Dear, tell the professor your answer quickly." She had observed that Luowei had not drawn a grid since just now, which showed that she did not know the grid algorithm at all. The grid algorithm is the simplest way to calculate products. You must first draw horizontal and vertical lines on paper to form many grids, and then calculate the product by counting the grid nodes. You don't even know how to do the grid algorithm, you pariah. Let's see how you pretend to be this time. Vina thought maliciously.